Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with love and honor and the respect that you deserve. And today is December the 4th. I just got back from voting on the extended election thingy for the state of Georgia. And, proud to be a longtime registered voter here in the state. But anyway, I did a video yesterday about climate change and that they're trying to push this BS on us again. And so I bring this up because this is sort of an addendum to that video I did yesterday about climate change. And it's that, you know what, for so long, they've been trying to tell us, at least since Al Gore did his thing back in 2000, 2001 ish, the earth is melting and all these things are not yada yada. You know the drill. Okay, well, nobody remembers history apparently. And I just want to do a little bit of scan. Now, I'm using Wikipedia again because it's the easiest place to get general information. Now, I would share the screen, but YouTube doesn't allow me to do so on this particular computer. That's not a complaint, it's an observation. Now, the Dust Bowl was a period of severe dust storms that greatly damaged the ecology and the agriculture of American and Canadian prairies during the 1930s severe drought and a failure to apply dryland farming methods to prevent wind erosion caused by the phenomenon. The drought came in three waves in 1934, 36, and 1939 and 40, but some regions of the high plains experienced drought conditions for as many as 8 years. With insufficient understanding of the ecology of the plains, farmers had conducted extensive deep plowing of the virgin topsoil, um, and this had displaced the native deep rooted grasses that normally trap soil and moisture even during periods of drought and high winds. So, the rapid mechanization of farm equipment, especially small gasoline tractors, and the widespread use of combine harvested contributed to the decisions to convert arid grasslands to cultivated croplands. Now, the problem with that was they received very little rain, about 10 to 12, maybe 15 inches of rain a year. So it's not very much. But during the drought of the 1930s, the unanchored soil turned to dust, which the prevailing winds blew away in huge clouds that sometimes blackened the sky. These choking billows of dust, named black blizzards or black rollers, traveled cross country, reaching as far as the East Coast and striking such cities as New York, Washington, D.C., and other cities. On the plains, they often reduced visibility to 3 feet or less. Uh, the drought and erosion affected more than 100 million acres that centered in the panhandles of Texas, Oklahoma, and touched sections of New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. So, my point to this is man was part of the cause of this, but nobody's going back into history and going, well, what caused the bowl was the fact that there was a severe drought. Now, the Dust Bowl itself was caused by farmers plowing up the virgin prairie lands and out there. And if you haven't been out west and seen some of these prairies and so forth, it's amazing. And I can understand it if they took all the topsoil off and turned it under, that there would be a large erosion problem, especially if there wasn't any rain and there were high winds. Now, but they blame the problem of the dust on the farmers and mechanization. But the cause of the dust was because of the drought. Okay. So now you say, well, oh my God. Well, if you just do a little bit of reading and look at some of the pictures of what happened during the Dust Bowl and see some of the old movies that happened with people moving to California and other places to try to get away from this stuff, it was absolutely horrible. Now, nobody was screaming that, oh my God, humans were the cause of this. Humans were the cause of the dust, but not of the drought, and etc. Okay. Now, I speak of this because we have just went through a drought here in Southwest Georgia and parts of Alabama, northern Florida, but we've had a severe drought issue here. Now, I just came back from voting, and I'm proud to say that the river is flooded for the first time in 5 or 6 years. My backyard is a swamp again, which is the way it's supposed to be. The river is running really high. I haven't seen it run this high in, like I say, in at least 5 years. And it's running strong. The small creeks are up, and it's hard to walk across the yard because it's so wet, so deep that you just kind of bog down. And I'm talking about up here on the hill, which is all good news because that means our groundwater is back. But to the point though, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I mean, it's been so really dry that it's like things just wouldn't live. Now, this has been the first normal year of rainfall I've seen in the last decade here in South Georgia, actually since about 2000, 2001. It's just been off the charts. We had a couple of rainy seasons, but mostly we were dry. And I can relate that to the fact that every time about this time of the year, I have issues with low water in my well. I haven't had issues with my well water at all for the last year because we've had sufficient enough rainfall. So, with that said, um, I want to remind people that who are going, off this deep end again and wanting to beat up Trump about, his thing and he doesn't care about the climate. And there are other factors involved that we humans, yes, should we practice better care of our land? Yes. When it's dry, should we deep plow and turn under the soil? No. If certain other things happen, should we? No. There are certain things we as human beings should learn. Now, if we should learn from the past, we should understand it wasn't the farming that caused the drought. The drought was caused by Mother Nature. The Dust Bowl was caused by the farmers and farming practices. But had they received a normal amount of rain, the Dust Bowl would not have occurred. So there is a tit for tat or a rhyme and a reason for what happened. But the cause of the Dust Bowl was Mother Earth. It got really dry all over the Midwest. Well, I guess you would say the plains area, all the way up into Canada. Okay. So now, were there a lot of automobiles where, there are a lot less people in the 1930s than what there are now. So were people to blame for the drought for those almost 10 years, 8 years at least? Now, were those humans responsible for the climate change? We were responsible for doing crappy, farming techniques. Okay. But it was the drought that caused the thing in the first place. Did we cause that drought? We didn't even have airplanes much back in the 30s and 40s. We were just starting to get into the sky and et cetera. And World War II had started in Poland and with Germany and all. But here in the United States, we were going through the Dust Bowl. And it was a horrendous thing. Now, people want to say, well, all right, look at what's going on today. And I say, look back in history, and there's been some crappy times in the past that mankind had nothing to do with. I spoke about I was reading and watching. I have a certain affinity for the certain war history, and the Battle of the Bulge was one of mine because I knew of a man who received the Medal of Honor for his bravery during the Battle of the Bulge in the winter of 1944 against the Germans. And it was like the last big push the Germans tried, and they just failed miserably. Several of his generals resigned, etc. But to the point, though, during that winter, it was the coldest winters in history. And the men were so ill prepared, and it got so cold, the guys froze to death in their foxholes. And there was a 2-week period around the Christmas time in 1944 that it stopped everything, But oh my God, did humans create that? Nobody jumped up and down and went, oh my God, it's all the tanks and all the fuel and all the stuff. And it's the industry that made this cold front come through and freeze our troops to death on both sides. German troops froze to death too. I mean, it was a horrendous time. But the thing is, people won't even look back less than 100 years to go, oh my God, the climate's been crappy several times in our recent history, if you will. And if you do a little bit more homework, you'll find out, oh my God, Mother Earth has been changing and wobbling and doing all of these things ever since Mother Earth got here, you know? So it's like these people want to blame it on us. Oh, stop it. Please just go back and do a little bit of history. Mother Earth is changing because that's what she does. And this climate change nonsense, yes, the climate's changing because that's what Mother Earth does. She goes through hot periods, she goes through cold periods. Right now, my backyard's flooded. That's a positive, in my opinion. But for the last 10 years, there's been barely any water back there. So, not good, in my opinion, when it's supposed to be a swamp. It's back to being a swamp again. That's a thumbs up to me. Now, so for the last 10 years, I've been bitching and complaining because of the drought. Okay, we're back. We've got more rain now. Things go in cycles. Now, am I going to complain that maybe the next 2 years or so it's going to be more wet and my land's going to stay flooded more? Well, no, because I bought the property knowing it would flood. So I'm well aware of this, but to other people, it's like, well, how do you know these things? Well, I've lived on this property almost 40 years. I've been lived here in South Georgia for about 45 years, and I know the territory. I know the terrain. I know the rivers. I've seen things change, and my observations are we're swinging back. Now, I hope it stays wet for a couple of years because, I mean, things actually grow in the garden, my well stays up, and it just helps a lot of other things. Besides that, it's really interesting to go, 100 feet back there in my yard and drag my kayak and be able to paddle for a mile and never run into ground because it's flooded for a half a mile across these where I live in this little valley of the Little Ochlockonee River. And when the river floods, the whole floodplain, it's a half a mile across of nothing but water, going through the trees. And it's really interesting. It's also very dangerous. And in places it can only be a foot deep, and in other places it could be 15 or 20 feet deep. So, but you got to know where the river is. But anyway, to the point though, it's like this is a cycle. Mother Earth is going through a cycle. Thank you, spirits, that I've got water in my backyard again. Oh my gosh, that is such a good thing. But for people to say that it's you and me's fault for this, please. There are grander things that are working on this. And I submit very casually, but with hard evidence, that, ladies and gentlemen, please understand Mother Earth has done some dire things in our very recent past, less than 100 years ago. And we should look back and go, oh, Mother Earth does some of this crazy stuff once in a while. And so, with that said, I say, keep your mind about these things. I see you there, Quartz and Melanie. It looks like I've got company, so I wasn't gonna go on about this, but some deserts out there recently got a lot of water. Exactly. So things are going back the other direction. So with that said, I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to get a knock on the door here in a second. And I just want to say I love y'all. Thank you much. And I'll be back later. And always remember, accept and receive the energy from the universe. It's always there. So see you later, y'all. Bye now.